Everyone's getting hurt, and I'm sick of it. I'm sick of it.
You know who else is sick of it?
Hugh Jackman. That's who. Hugh Jackman's sick of it. Always appreciate you, Hugh. I'm Trevor May, and this is Baseball, 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 Baseball. Major League Baseball is struggling with an injury problem in 2024. I'm talking the best arms. I'm talking like the super cool arms. I'm talking about like the guys that everyone actually cares about. All the best guys. Just like any other situation like this, we're having a big dumb argument about it on the internet. My goal is to give you all the information you need to maybe be a little bit more informed on this conversation and possibly come up with a solution to this very complex problem. Just in the past couple years, we've had Jacob deGrom go down with his second Tommy John. Spencer Strider just had surgery for his second Tommy John. Sandy Alcantara, Framber Valdez just missed time for an elbow. Justin Bieber, Shane Bieber, elbow, out. It seems like every single day there's another high-profile guy having to go under the knife for an elbow injury. And they're always a guy that we would much rather see throw 200 innings in the major leagues, and for some reason, they're just getting hurt right now. Tommy John surgery has been on the rise for years now. The number of Tommy Johns in the minors has steadily increased. I would say it's no secret on why guys are getting hurt. There are some pretty glaring, obvious answers. If you want to solve a problem, a good rule of thumb is usually go for the most obvious answers first. According to an article by Joel Sherman that he put out just before opening day, 132 of 166 guys hurt were pitchers. Now, how does that compare to the historical average? The historical average is anywhere from 60 to 65% usually. Pitchers generally do get hurt at a higher clip than hitters. However, 80% is astronomical. But what is causing it? What are we going to do about it? These are the questions we're going to look to answer today. So it only makes sense to start with the two groups of people that are most intimate with the problem, the MLB Commissioner's Office and the MLBPA, both of which recently put out public statements, which I've talked about on my podcast Mayday. Check it out wherever you listen to podcasts. And we're going to cover it here. Despite unanimous player opposition and significant concerns regarding health and safety, the Commissioner's Office has reduced the length of the pitch clock last December, just one season removed from opposing the most significant rule change in decades. I've gone into this ad nauseum. I've talked about it quite a bit, but it's important to know how this thing started and then where both sides are coming from so that we can kind of pull it apart and figure it out ourselves. Despite all of the players in the committee giving their concerns, voting against the change, and similar feedback being given across the league, the Commissioner's Office has changed the rule even after already changing it once less than a year ago. The reduced recovery time is actually being cited by players as something that they are noticing in association with fatigue that they maybe haven't experienced before. The MLBPA also posits that the league just isn't acknowledging these concerns, even though the people experiencing the effect are telling them directly to their face. This was one of those rules that went through 7-4, where all 7 of the Commissioner's Office people or the people associated with the Commissioner's Office voted yes, and all of the players voted no. In summary, we tried to tell them that this might cause injuries. We are seeing injuries now, and we haven't seen enough information to tell us that it isn't the pitch clock, and it was not a very good idea just to put it in place and continue to shorten the clock, not knowing for sure. And then the MLB responds with the statement of their own, which is a little bit longer, so bear with me. This statement ignores the empirical evidence and much more significant long-term trend over multiple decades of velocity and spin increases that are highly correlated with arm injuries. They first start with a good old-fashioned lawyer strategy of deflection. Hey guys, we think the clock is hurting pitchers. Yeah, but what about velocity? Can't get me, I'm a deflection champion. So instead of citing any of the things said in the first statement, they're addressing the situation going on a whole, even though the statement doesn't address that at all. Actually, it's this much more complicated thing that's going on. And it's also your fault, players. So they posit that it's actually velocity and spin increases that are causing the injuries. Nobody wants to see pitchers get hurt in this game, which is why MLB is currently undergoing a significant comprehensive research study in the causes of this long-term increase, interviewing prominent medical experts across baseball, which to date has been consistent with an independent analysis by Johns Hopkins University that found no evidence to support that the introduction of the pitch clock. Nobody wants to see pitchers get hurt. No one wants to see anybody get hurt. It's not very fun to watch people get hurt, but you can be indifferent. You can weigh the pros and cons, possibly getting more injuries, but what does it bring you in return? And it seems like that might be what's going on. Then they go on to say, we've interviewed prominent medical experts, naming exactly 0. It does seem a little bit weird that they're like, hey, we've talked to medical experts and not the actual people experiencing the symptoms. It seems like you would take both of those things into account if you actually wanted to solve the problem. They could very easily talk to both sides. Instead, they ignore the one side and only talk to the other one because it supports their argument. It also says Johns Hopkins University had found no evidence to support that increased injuries were because of the pitch clock. This is a study that is currently in peer review. It actually hasn't been published. So, you're telling me that the study that you're doing isn't even done yet, and you're gonna make a rule change based on findings for something that has not been published yet. We are in another situation where a group of people in the commissioner's office have decided to give a bunch of information, back none of it up with any sort of citing or anything, and then just expect you just to take their word for it. At least the Players Association has players saying, hey, yeah, my arm hurts more when I go faster. At least that exists. Let's make sure that we do it the right way before we make decisions that affect hundreds of guys' careers. That would be great. So, we don't have proof of anything that's being said in this study. We do, though, have a study that was actually published in 2016 by an actual employee of the Chicago Cubs right now, Mike Sony. And what was his conclusion? The pitch clock is going to get pitchers hurt more.
That's amazing.
So the MLB put out a response because they felt like they needed to. Does it address the claim that they don't listen to the players? No. Did they enact a rule change based on a study that hasn't been published 14 months after the rule was put in place? Yes. Did they change the rule again without it still being published? Yes. So now that we know the stances, let's just break down the arguments. I think I know a great way to do it. Welcome to class. We have the MLBPA. We have the fans who are sad. And we have Rob and the boys, aka the commissioner's office. Now, according to this graph that I mentioned before, velocities have been going up steadily over time. I think we've all seen this with our eyes. The average velo was going up every single year. I felt it. I was trying to keep up with that pace. It sucked. Rob and the boys are accusing the players of adding velo plus spin and getting hurt. That's way too long. We're not going to write that long anymore. Then the PA says, no, it's the pitch clock. One thing I will say about this group, I was part of it. We're not saying it's only the pitch clock. We're just saying the pitch clock was the element that we didn't know enough about before we put it into our game. That sounds like a rational concern. Doesn't think so. What other explanations could there possibly be? We had Kyler Glasnow come out and say that sticky stuff ban caused him to grip the ball more tightly and therefore made him have to work harder and recruit muscles that he wasn't having to use before, and it just happened too quickly. Does this have anything to do with guys getting injured? I'm going to take Tyler's word for it because he literally had the experience. I feel like this is pretty straightforward. We have both the lockout, a short spring training, only about 3 weeks, and then we have the COVID season, where a bunch of guys lost an entire season, so they lost out on those innings, and a shortened spring training, and less games for the big leaguers. You went and threw 60 innings, you had to try to go through 200 the next year, you were at a higher risk of injury. Those things make sense. And then we have the rule changes, and it's not only the pitch clock that could affect a pitcher's health. Less pitchers on the roster. There can only be 13 at any given time, so guys have to cover more innings. or get sent down. The incentive to pitch through something has been increased, even though it was already high, because staying in the big leagues is a big deal. Then now you can't step off at all when there's no one on base, so there's no slowing down the game at all. You can't get that extra rest if your arm is tired. Does that make sense? You guys got it, right? You got it? Velocities have increased over time. There's no doubt in my mind that that is a major reason that guys are getting hurt. I think the point is to find a solution here, because if you truly don't want guys to get hurt, you will do what you need to do in order to avoid it and make that the highest priority. That is something that I do not see, and as we see by the statements being made by both sides, they don't seem as interested in getting it done and more interested in giving the other side a black eye. Why are velocities going up? Because we know how to do it. Technology's come very far. We have track band data now. We know how things spin. Spinning a ball really hard and throwing it really hard both involve effort. So think of them as the same thing. If a guy doesn't necessarily throw super hard but has developed a curveball that breaks a lot, or a sweeper or something, and they're trying to get it to break more, you do that with effort. They're basically stressing their arms in a different way than a fastball would, but it has the same effect, if not more of an effect, because you're recruiting even smaller, more intricate muscles to get that job done. And it's being incentivized. Players are chancing getting hurt because velocity is rewarded at every level, and it always has been. And so to act like this is a new thing with track band or something, no, it's not. It's always been this way. If you don't believe me, Tyler Glasnow put it into words better than I ever could have.
That's what's kind of nice about stadiums that have the metrics posted, like they have like the X and Y axis, like vertical, horizontal. There's a few stadiums that have it. You'll look up, it's by the radar. So it's like a new thing that's happening. And so like when they post it, it's super helpful. It's nice.
It is helpful. It's not too much when you're playing a game.
No, I always I'm a little radar slut anyway. So I look up every time. So like, it's just like some more numbers to look at.
I myself am a little radar slut. I literally looked at the radar every single time I threw a pitch for my entire career. Do you know why? Because I associated throwing hard with being successful. Like those two things were connected. And when you're out there, the only thing you care about is being successful, and you're gonna do whatever you need to do to get there. Your entire life is just building up yourself in order to impress the next person that gets to make a decision on whether or not you get a move up. So, why do you think guys are doing this? It's because that system is in place, and it has never been stronger in the major leagues. It's a problem that they themselves are helping to perpetuate and then trying to point the finger. Now, if I hear one more anecdote about Greg Maddux about this situation, I will lose my goddamn mind. I understand how good of pitching he was, but that was incentivized then, and I'll be honest, he was a little bit of an outlier then too, guys. Even when he was playing, the guys who threw really hard were still at a premium. I literally have a term for the radar gun in a stadium. It's called the talent meter. This is a common term used around baseball. I literally would go into every stadium and be like, where's the talent meter out? So that I can know where I had to turn around and look at it. This is so common. And this is, of course, this is the way we work, because it's the way that we receive the rewards for our labor. So how do you solve that problem? I haven't heard a single idea of how to solve it. It's one of those problems that's so complex that it's easier just to say, it's pretty complex, guys. I don't know what we can do, and then just hope people get so bogged down with all the little nuance and detail that they just stop talking about it. And that's what they're doing. There's gonna be nothing done on that side. There's no way to unmarry the pitch clock from the increases of velo from incentives, which they're just gonna say means that they're not connected. They are connected. They are. So I wanna figure out, how do we fix it? So here's some solutions if it is velo. We need to incentivize command, and we need to incentivize results. But how do we do it? You set an example in the major leagues. You set an example at the highest level, like this is what we care about, and then everybody else adjusts below you. That's how it works. So if you want to change it, you need to start rewarding people differently in Major League Baseball. That's how you change it. That's it. Now, for the rest of the problems being put out there, if it is a pitch clock issue, if it is a sticky stuff issue, if it is a balls being too slick issue, those have clear one-step remedies. If it's the pitch clock, stop doing the pitch clock like that. If it's the balls, fix them. Like, these are all ways to avoid these injuries if you find any sort of conclusive evidence. Unfortunately, that evidence probably won't ever be found because, again, you can't unmarry these things from the increases of velocity because those have been happening for years. So we're just gonna yell about it. The least we could do is be genuine. The least we could do is operate under good faith and do the due diligence and do the things that we're saying we're doing. So, which things are getting pitchers hurt? They all are. Duh. Surprise, I shaved. You gotta do some stuff to fix the game. I honestly have come around on the pitch clock a long time ago. I think that the shorter games are better. I like them. And when it comes to player health, I think that an abundance of caution is usually the better way to go, and it just doesn't feel like that's what happened. I guess we'll see. Let me know down in the comments what you think. And also, while you're down there, let me know how you feel about sourdough bread. And don't forget to do what the pillow says, so you never miss a video in the future. I appreciate you. Thank you for being here, and I will see you next time on the Trevor May Baseball channel. Get out of here.